The repair presented in this video is performed on a particular frame style. The look of the console or the cosmetic plastics is irrelevant to how this repair is made, as long as your machine's frame style is closely similar to that shown in this video. Be sure to unplug your machine before attempting this repair and do not use power tools to make the repair. To access the drive belt on a bike, you will need to remove a number of components. Using a thin wrench, remove the left hand pedal from the left hand crank arm. Turn the wrench to the right or clockwise. Using a flathead screwdriver with a thin tip, pop the upright cover loose and slide it up the upright out of the way. Using the same flathead screwdriver, gently pry off the pedal disc and slide it off over the crank arm. Though not shown here, now is the time to also remove the right-hand pedal and pedal disc. Remove the screws from the left and right side shields, then slide the side shields around the crank arms and off the bike. Now you will loosen tension on the drive belt by loosening the adjustment bolt and then the idler bolt. With the drive belt loosened, you can just walk it off the crank pulley. Using a thin wrench, remove the nuts and washer that hold the right crank arm to the center of the crank pulley. Using a standard flathead screwdriver, push the slotted bearing retainer clockwise off the crank arm threads. You may need another person to hold the crank arm on the opposite side of the bike to keep it from turning. Once the bearing retainer has been removed, pull the crank arm out through the hub of the crank pulley and remove both crank bearing rings. Slide a new bearing ring onto the left-hand side of the crank arm and thread the right-hand side of the crank arm through the hub of the crank pulley. Now slide a new bearing ring onto the right-hand side of the crank arm and screw in the bearing retainer to set the crank arms in place. Replace the washer and the two nuts to fully attach the crank arm to the crank pulley. Return the drive belt to its proper place by walking it onto the crank pulley. Now return the drive belt to its proper tension by tightening up the idler bolt and then fully tighten the adjustment bolt. Now reattach the plastics that house the crank pulley, but in reverse order. The left and right hand side shields, the left and right hand pedal discs, and the upright cover. Now reattach the right and left hand pedals to the right and left hand crank pulleys. Once everything is in place, pedal your bike slowly to make sure that everything is working properly.